You're
Straight to
welcome.
the bottom.
Oh,
Yeah.
don't worry. He missed the window. He missed the window.
Follow my OnlyFans.
Jesus.
Make up the dollars there.
Oh, Shelley. Angela. Confused in the chat. Trying to be clever.
And hello, and welcome to Pixel Pints. This is the only global gaming podcast where we cover two great things, which is good beer and video games. I am joined today by an esteemed panel. It's Drop It Like It's Hot this week, fellas, because we got some hot guests on today. Enjoy the show. So both insight hot and good looking hot. So let's just get that out of the way. Right, fellas? We're all good looking. So anyway, Mitch, I'm hosting here. McWomble is out. He will be back next week, which actually I believe next week is the reveal of our fantasy drafts. Or is it the following week?
Shit, he's going to kill me if I don't get the picks in.
Yep. So if you have not gotten your picks in, fellas, which includes our esteemed guests, they are part of our Discord. Therefore, they are allowed to participate. So you hear that, fellas? You all can participate. So it's our fantasy draft. We do special things with our fantasy draft. McWomble has some funky rules to try to make it interesting. So this year will be really cool. I'm actually really excited. This one is going to be awesome. So get those in if you haven't gotten them in, and we'll reveal those picks to you on a certain episode. So I think it's either next week or the following week, but McWomble will be back. I'm your host, Mitch, here in the sunny side of LA, and I am joined by Burkoff, who is Mr. Las Vegas himself. Hello, Burkoff.
Heidi ho.
I have Erebus Jones from across the pond. Actually, we have a couple ponders, but this is the first one.
Good name.
The other ponder we have is Liam.
Hi, and there might be another.
Well, we have two kind of specialer guests, unfortunately, because they got their own.
A special.
Well, they do because they got their own stuff. So we gotta plug them. You know, we gotta plug that in. So, anyways, the other one across the pond, from their own, they have their own podcast, which is OTTAPPS. If you want to plug yours in, you can feel free to do so right now if you'd like.
Yes, DIMP Digital. Head over to youtube.com/DIMP Digital. Our podcast Idle Game Chat goes live every Monday, so it'd be good to have you over there. But hello, Mitchell.
Hello, and I bet you're going to be talking about Microsoft too over there. So if you want more Microsoft talk,
Want less informed opinion, tune in on Monday. You'll find it.
And then finally, without a further ado, I go him last only for the fact that he has an esteemed podcast, not mistaken for the one that is ran by Chris Evans, because he was the first a starting point podcast. And that is Mick Griffin. How are we doing?
Not so bad, not so bad. By the way, this is the weirdest Hot Ones intro I have ever been on in my life. This whole Sean Evans intro was very strange. But thank you, I appreciate that. I was expecting wings, but no, honestly, yeah, happy to be here, man. Looking forward to chat with you guys. Yeah, guys can find us at A Starting Point on Twitter. We're all over the place, Spotify, iTunes, you name it, we're probably on it. But yeah, check us out. We like to talk about video games. Hang out with my co-host, Mr. Quiglin. So, yeah, looking forward to having a conversation with all the madness that's happening today.
Now, because you were on this, I do have to just check. This is the one thing I always check.
Sure.
Has the Evans himself reached out to you about your podcast?
Not yet. We've had the Russo brothers. We've had several other people mistakenly hit us up. The Italian Captain America fan base has reached out to us by accident. Yeah. So, no Chris Evans yet. We eagerly await his arrival. But, again, we're squatting on that name until he shows up. If he shows up, I'm saying it here live. If he shows up, we're happy to give him the name, but he's got to be on the podcast. That's how this works.
Okay. Well, if you want Chris Evans to go on a very randomized podcast, you people out there, starts tweeting at him to say you're stealing someone's name. All right. So today, fellas, we are talking about what, of course, everyone is talking about. This is one where we just cannot go without talking about, which is Microsoft intends to buy Activision Blizzard for, well, up to close to $70 billion. I have the exact number around, but I will get to that in a minute. But before we get to that, we always talk about something else in this podcast because it's about great beer. So, does anybody have fun drinks? Any beers?
Not this morning, but if you follow me on Twitter, Friday night I did have a few beers at a newer place here in Vegas called 595. I say that it's newer because you can't smoke inside and there's no gambling, so it has to have been built in the last 5 years. But yeah, they had a bunch of local stuff on tap. Was finally able to try Tenaya Creek's. They call it the Dutch, which is it's a Belgian Tripel. And it's 9%, so it was a great way to start the night.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it is way too early. If it was the midnight podcast, I totally would. But
yeah,
I just have water. Anybody else got anything? That's okay. The news is so great. We just need to talk about the games. So
I'm still waking up with coffee and tea. Come on, let's be real here.
I mean, unless you were a Green Bay Packers fan and drinking your sorrows away this morning, I could completely understand why you're drinking. So anyway, or if you were Keith and the Titans lost yesterday. Ooh. You're still drinking those sorrows away too, I understand. But let's just get to the news. So to break this down, because there's so much, there's a lot that has happened in the last 72 to whatever 24 hours after 72 is 78, 90, 70, 94 hours. There you go.
This week. So much has happened this week.
What's 7 days in hours? That's what I would want to say. But anyway, so what we're going to do, I'm going to break down all the info for you, which I have been listening to many podcasts, and I have been upset, to be honest, because some people are stating very infactual information and not being very careful with their words. We are going to be very careful with our words in regards to this portion of giving you the information. But then after that, we're going to open it up and chat about many different things. We're going to chat about about the corporate consolidation. Is this bad for the industry? We all know it's not a monopoly. We're not going to talk about that crap because we all know it's not a monopoly. So, but we're also going to talk about the effects of it for PlayStation, for Xbox, for Nintendo, the games industry as a whole, publishing, all that kind of stuff. But anyways, if you've been living under a rock, here's your info. So there's details of plans to acquire Activision Blizzard Inc. for $68.7 billion. Bobby Kotick, the renowned alleged sex offender Bobby Kotick, yes, allegedly, yes, because we have to use that word.
I like that he's renowned and allegedly. That's a weird combination to have together. But
well, when your name's all over the news, you are renowned.
Renowned allegedly.
Renowned allegedly. Bobby, and I think McWomble would approve of those words, by the way. And except, fuck Bobby Kotick. That too. But anyways, he will continue to serve as CEO as the deal closes. The plans that the deal will close sometime in 2023 is their guesstimation. It just depends on certain... Because the reason why we can't say they bought them is because there's a bunch of legality things that have to happen along with some congressional things. So we will cover slightly what the congressional thing is, because for me, at least in my argument, that's something that I think is an interesting thing that's going to come up about in certain aspects. But anyways, Bobby Kotick will remain CEO until the deal does close. The rumor is it has not been confirmed truly if he gets a payout of some kind from this deal, but the assumption is yes, because that's what happens to the CEOs. They get a giant payout when they make a big deal like this. And there's rumors that he will step down, get fired, whatever it is, retire, whatever the fun verbiage is to make him look good as he leaves Activision Blizzard. Once the purchase, if it does go through, that's what would happen. Phil Spencer, good for him to make himself a new role as CEO of Microsoft Gaming, and that's what will happen if this purchase goes through. He will make himself a new role, and where all the studios, including Activision Blizzard, King is part of Activision Blizzard, if you didn't know, which includes Candy Crush. So that will also, they will all go to him. Big, maybe instead of Big Jim or it should be Big Phil now because Phil's kind of on top of the mountain now. So anyways, that is what happens for the details. Since then, after this news, Sony's stock price dropped about 11%. I believe it was 11%. I know it was a one and another number behind it. I was trying to find it and I couldn't find where I was finding it. But anyways, dropped about 11%. Sony spokesperson spoke to the Wall Street Journal stating, quote, "We expect that Microsoft will abide by contractual agreements and continue to assure Activision games are multi-platform," end quote. So once that statement came out, Microsoft came out with another statement. Obviously, they had their own statement about everything. It's not worth going into when they announced their plans to acquire. But after the Sony statement, they came out with their own statement via Twitter. Big Phil stated, quote, had good calls this week with Sony leaders, end quote, and then a bunch of things he said after that, and then, quote, "I confirmed our intent to honor all existing agreements upon acquisition of Activision Blizzard and our desire to keep Call of Duty on PlayStation. Sony is an important part of our industry, and we value our relationship," end quote. So, what is left? So right now, they have to go through certain legalities in regards to just, on the books type things, checking all the numbers, making sure everything lines up. Obviously, the transaction of the actual funds have to go through. But then there's a huge thing, which is called the Securities and Exchange Commission in Congress. And if there's a big purchase that happens of multi-million dollar companies, and in this case, billion-dollar companies, what happens is this committee has to approve it, and therefore it has to be a majority vote. So that is the last thing. That's the kind of the biggest hurdle for the acquisition to go through. Yeah, that's everything. I mean, obviously there's other information that's come out. We can release that whenever we want. But where do we want to start this? So let's just talk about what happened. Like, what initial thoughts when some of us, like myself, and probably Burkoff too, was we woke up to this news. I thought you all were joking on the Discord when I was reading my messages and being like, it's people playing hypotheticals?
So did the Blizzard employees. They also woke up to this news. Had no idea it was happening. No insider information. Just woke up and like, oh, we're Microsoft now. That's cool. One of my favorite tweets was someone posted, they're like, yeah, a buddy of mine just after a couple weeks of interviews finally moved over to Activision. Woke up to the news that he just got bought by Microsoft after just leaving Microsoft.
They loved him
Poor
too
guy.
much. They loved him too much.
So one of the things that I think is really interesting about this is that this is not only the largest gaming purchase in history, this is the largest tech purchase in history. And when I say tech, like all tech, right? The last one that happened was in 2016 when Dell bought EMC, and Dell bought EMC for $67 billion. So this is the largest tech consolidation in history.
By
And it's a video game
$1.7
company.
billion.
Yeah, by 1. Oh yeah, they beat it by 1.7. Chump
But,
change, right?
yeah,
No
chump
problem.
change, right? It's not that much money, guys.
It's just astounding that a video game company would break that record, right?
Oh.
Like, oh yeah, Activision.
And for the record, this would make Microsoft the third highest revenue streamer in regards to video games, behind number one Tencent and number two Sony. So just for the record of like how much revenue in the gaming division this would bring in for them. But yeah, Burkoff, what were you like waking up to this?
I thought it was a joke. Yeah, I woke up and I saw the tweets and I was like, yeah, haha, they're Microsoft's buying another company, whatever. And then I started scrolling through and like some like actual big names were commenting on it and I was like, holy shit, this is real. Yeah, I don't know really. So initially I thought like, of course this is going to happen, right? But the more that I think about it, the more it sounds like Blizzard and Activision are like, they had so much social pressure and all this other stuff. It's like, and there were rumors that came out that like, no, that Activision actually went to Microsoft and was like, hey, do you guys want to buy us? That's what it kind of sounds like to me. It was like, they decided, we need to do something here that's gonna change the game a little bit.
How did OTAPPS, like, I guess when did the news drop for you guys? Like what time? Like what were you doing? Like,
No, what was it? Like lunchtime, I felt like it was, or late morning.
Yeah, I think it's
Yeah,
like
it's,
1 or 2.
you know,
Yeah, I was
what's
just
it?
about to have my ham roll, and
our
then
second
tap
breakfast. Our second breakfast.
That's it. No, I was just completely gobsmacked when I first saw it. I thought, wow, that's not something I expected on a Tuesday morning or Tuesday afternoon. Sorry, and there's just so many different scenarios and how this can play out. It's really interesting, is the word I'd use. And I don't think really I've had time to compute and think about exactly how I feel about it, but it'd be fun to talk about. That's for sure.
Good thing you're on this podcast then. Erebus Jones, what was the news like for you?
Yeah, I was in a meeting, so I was at work at the time, and normally you've kind of got a phone in front so you can see Discord going or whatnot. Not paying attention in a meeting, and they come out and there's like 50 odd messages or something like that in Discord. You know something's happened when it looks like that. You're like, oh god, what the hell's gone on here? And then you're looking at it, and it's like, this doesn't make any sort of sense, because I just assumed they were too big. Like, they were completely untouchable. In the same way you think of EA being untouchable, or Take-Two being untouchable, or Nintendo being untouchable. And if anything, all this week's done now is it's just gone to show there are no rules. If you've got a near infinite amount of money, nothing is entirely off the table. So yeah, it's just a bit of a shocking.
I was actually gonna say the exact thing you were gonna say, which is when I first saw that news, I was like, wait, I thought Activision was so. It's like It's like you'd have to come up with a crazy number that no one could buy. Like even Microsoft couldn't buy. Like I think 68 billion is chump change. Like for how much money they make. Like I think they easily could have asked for like 80 billion, but maybe the social pressure got to them in that regards of all the scandalous stuff and Bobby Kotick not leaving and not wanting to leave, all that kind of stuff. Liam, how'd it go for you?
Well, I was in a museum in London with my mum. So yeah, I got a message on my phone from a friend who doesn't really contact me very often. I was just like, oh, what's this? I'm gonna just check what this is. He sent me an image of literally the thing they'd put on their Twitter page, and I was like, I replied to him, was like, this is fake, you idiot. Yeah, and I slowly realised, because I started getting a bunch of messages from the Discord, and I thought I'll just go back to it and have a closer look. Because he was telling the truth.
Let me ask you, why do you think it was fake?
Because it's just so unlikely to happen beforehand, But yeah, I wish I'd been home when it happened, because I was in this museum trying to hang out with my mum, and all I could think about in the back of my head was, oh my god, this is huge! Whoa! And
the Reddit boards.
Exactly, yeah, and it's exciting having a big acquisition like this, even if you have your misgivings about it. So I'm looking forward to when it eventually happens, and hopefully some good will come from it.
All right, so we're gonna break this down in multiple parts. So let's just get to one part, which is, what does this mean for Microsoft?
Much more shit on Game Pass.
Like the term you use there, shit.
I mean, at least they got a better first-person shooter than Halo Infinite.
Shots
I'm
fired.
playing Halo Infinite. Damn.
That campaign, man. Maybe they got a better campaign.
Campaign.
Multiplayer's great though.
Multiplayer. GTFO.
Oh yeah. The multiplayer is probably really fun. Right. I don't doubt it, but they don't have Titanfall though. Sorry, that was the one thing they should have went after Titanfall.
Rip.
I mean, honestly, after this news, they could probably buy EA, right?
Now that might get blocked.
See, I was thinking about this, but there was an awful lot of noise not long back about EA negotiating the FIFA or renegotiating the FIFA rights. And if you think about it, the biggest game in their stable is what, FIFA in Madden.
Yep.
And if they were to turn around and lose the FIFA rights, I'm pretty certain the value of that would, if Sony's just taken an 11% hit because of something that happened to another company, EA losing the FIFA rights would be massive.
Or
Massive
Madden,
damage.
any sport, all the sports rights, any of the sports rights, to be honest.
Well, I mean, there are, but there's different spheres, isn't there?
Oh,
I mean,
for sure.
FIFA and Madden are just way above what NHL or
Oh yeah.
the other, or do they do another sports game? Oh, they do the golf games, don't they? But
Well, they took a
Yeah.
break on it. They're coming out with a new one this year.
yeah, well, there you go then, isn't it? They don't have the confidence to put one out every year, so therefore it can't be.
Well,
the
Tiger
same
keeps
kind
getting
of
in
burning.
car accidents, so they need Tiger in the game.
So you look at it and you think, well, maybe they don't. Maybe they just go and buy the FIFA license out from underneath EA, and then what do you need EA for after that point? Mass Effect.
Apex Legends.
Well, I don't know
yeah.
if you guys know this, but EA and Facebook were actually the two entities that were behind Microsoft in trying to acquire Activision. So
I did not know that.
yeah, which is weird. EA buying Activision, just because they can't get Battlefield right. Clearly, they need a new first-person shooter franchise.
Yep.
Mm.
Yep.
Okay. So, but what? I mean, everything is on Game Pass. Like, what do you think about exclusivity? I mean, in my mind, how I'm seeing it is basically, I think based off Sony statements, Microsoft statements. At the moment, basically, if there's a contract signed, like with Bethesda, what happened, and like they already signed off on the next 2 Call of Duty games, that those will come to PlayStation regardless if Microsoft owns the company by then or not, because that is they're contractually obligated to make the game unless they cancel the project. I mean, and I don't see that happening, because if they cancel it, they can't make a Call of Duty, which then it's like, then you wasted your money.
Yeah.
So that's gonna happen, and then probably in my mind, I just see it exclusive on Game Pass from there on out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Microsoft's been pretty vocal about day and date, or day one. All these games, or anything that is a Microsoft game, is coming to Game Pass.
Yep.
And that's the allure of the service. So yeah, I think for Call of Duty or whatever to come to PlayStation, it's kind of like whatever. You got to buy it for $60 there, but if you just pay $15 a month, you can play it here.
Yep.
Does anybody have a different opinion in regards to how they'll utilize those IP properties in regards to, like, I just said they put it on Game Pass, but is there a different use of the entities, do you think?
Mobile.
I think we look at what they did with Bethesda, and it's exactly the same thing's going to play out. Anything that's contractually obliged will be there. Anything that's kind of a games as a service and already established, that'll stay. And everything else is going to go exclusive just as soon as they can make it viable. So, yeah, I think the actual numbered Call of Duties on PlayStation, they're going to end, within the next few years. You won't see Crash Bandicoot on PlayStation again. You won't see, Spyro on PlayStation, Tony Hawk's, none of that's coming to PlayStation anymore. Microsoft didn't spend that kind of money to provide content to other platforms. They bought it to provide content to Game Pass, so that's going to happen. But I actually think it's bigger than that, because I think the big part of that is the mobile side of it, because they've got absolutely really no presence in mobile at all. And what they've done there is they've bought like one of the biggest mobile developers in the world at the same time, so it'll go out that way too.
And during the call, they made actual numerous mentions about that. About obviously, Metaverse was always big in there as well, but they also made a lot of conversations about mobile platform. And Satya actually said that they're going to offering verbatim. This is exactly what he said on the call. Like offering Overwatch or Diablo via streaming to anyone with a phone as part of Game Pass.
Which is their cloud service, which is what they've always done.
But you think about it, like one of the things that they now have Candy Crush, to your point. We now are able to stream Diablo and Overwatch to mobile phones. We've already seen Microsoft fail miserably at the mobile market 1,000 times over. No more devices or anything like that. So how do you get on iPhone? How do you get on these other Android devices? Well, rather than making your own hardware, why don't you build a Game Pass that is on everything, and you're playing some of the most popular games with over 25 million players, right? Will I be able to play World of Warcraft on my phone? I highly doubt it, but it's a possibility. But I'm interested to see what they're going to do and see what they're going to move into the mobile market. I mean, what their other competition is Tencent, and Tencent has a very strong push in mobile right now. So
Yeah.
that's another question. Like they have to do something, and they need those pieces and parts. And I think that a lot of this is motivated by, oh God, I'm going to say meta so many times. The meta aspects of some of these games, especially the Blizzard titles, because like they're looking at digital economy, they're looking at digital goods, digital identification, digital presence, and what has a lot of that, and that would be Blizzard titles, whether it's Call of Duty, World of Warcraft, or whatever. So,
And this will be interesting. Commander Fett makes a good point, and I was actually going to bring it up to you guys. And yes, McWomble, I eventually will interrupt Matt. Give me a minute. McWomble is in the chat, fellas. He also said BlizzCon brought to you by the power of Windows 11.
Somebody, my buddy Alan said, I said, what are we gonna do? Is this? I mean, the BlizzCon is dead, and he goes, it's spelled Ignite, and I was like, son of a bitch.
So Commander Set says he says winner, but I think he says one. I think he means wonder. I wonder how they'll manage to handle these COD games. So I think it's I wonder how they'll manage to handle these COD games. Do you think it's gonna keep going every single year? There's gonna be a new Call of Duty, or do you think Microsoft will pull them back and say, hey, hold up, we need some of these studios to make other shit for us besides all this Call of Duty crap? Because there is Warzone that is constant. Do you think that? I mean, I see heads of shaking yes, and I see heads of shaking no. Do we need to do a raise of hands, fellas? How many do you think we're going yearly still? I will be on that train of the yearly. Oh, wow. Split fit.
Yeah. Split,
No,
yeah.
there is no such thing as a halvesy OTTAPPS. You okay. No. Put that hands down then. There's a 50-50 split. So why don't we go to Liam? Why do you think it is not going to be yearly anymore if the acquisition follows through?
Well, to be honest, I've been starting to get the opinion that was going to happen anyway before the acquisition, because what's happening right now is because the way that COD games has changed. They find that they're actually getting stagnation in the amount of people playing the game. Basically, people buying into microtransactions and things like that with the release of a new game. Because it's like once they stop supporting the previous game, people start to lose interest and stop spending money on the microtransactions. Especially if it's a successful game. They got it earlier this year, and Call of Duty Vanguard. I love that game, but most of the fandom doesn't, and people have just sort of tuned out. Because if Vanguard's a bad game, it seems people tend to tune out playing Warzone as well.
Well,
so I think
to push back a little bit on you, just to let you know, it is still the number one best-selling game this year.
Yeah,
in the calendar year.
If it sells 1 million less than the previous year over,
yes,
that's a problem.
So what was it? It was back in 2020. With Vanguard had a 36% decline.
Yeah.
On the UK sales charts. So it's dropping quick.
Well, but we don't know if it turned around, because originally, yes, it was that way with the initial start, but we don't know how it's finished with the holiday.
We'll see.
So that's the thing.
I think we've seen drops in Call of Duty's popularity before, though. Ghosts took a nosedive, Infinite Warfare took a nosedive, and it came roaring back. This year, if it follows the release order, this year we're due Modern Warfare 2. I fully expect Modern Warfare 2 to probably be one of the biggest video game launches of all time, because the last Modern Warfare was fairly well received, but certainly by the people that like it. Obviously, the core don't like Call of Duty, whatever, but the people that like Call of Duty genuinely really like that one, and it's going to have a sequel, and it's got Modern Warfare slapped on the front of it. It will do absolute massive money, and I think the same's true. I mean, you look at the money that, when everybody was looking at this, they were looking at it in the context of what it was going to do to Sony. And if you were looking at somebody released the MPD numbers for Sony for the past several years, and Call of Duty is usually at least 2 spots every year in its top selling games. That is not jump change. Even if it goes down a little bit, that is still worth addressing that kind of market that's there. I don't think you see a drop in or a reduction in a yearly output in Call of Duty until that number absolutely collapses. And we haven't seen a collapse. We've just seen a drop because, to be fair, nobody was particularly enthused about the Dirty Dozen in Call of Duty, which is what this year's was. I'm sure if they get the setting right, that audience will come straight back.
OTTAPPS, do you think so like it because of this because if the acquisition goes through, Microsoft is such a huge company. I mean, they could spend $68.7 billion. Yes, we will say that number a lot today. Because they have that amount of money to spend on this company and to acquire Call of Duty, do you think they can still do the yearly output? Because even if sales drops by like 1 million, like on every other game, let's just say, they still, one, make a lot of money, and two, Microsoft ain't gonna go bankrupt if Call of Duty fails.
No, I mean there's kind of two things to this. One, that they've been very vocal about reviving old IP, and there's a lot of stuff that comes with Activision and with Blizzard that they could do that with. How far do you want to disrupt the Call of Duty machine, which is what Activision itself has kind of become over the last couple of years? At least we've seen lots of studios folded into supporting that. So in order to fulfill that promise, or that dream of resurrecting new IP, do you disrupt the Call of Duty machine? And the second thing around the performance of Call of Duty, let's not forget one of the reasons why it's so popular and does so well is because it's on the leading platform, PlayStation. There are so many PS4s out there. At the moment, PlayStation 5 is selling pretty well if you were to look at some of the figures that are being reported out there. And to take it off that platform, or to change the yearly outcome would you're inevitably going to drop your sales. And they've got to make a decision on whether they think it's going to pull over enough people who are going to jump on the Game Pass bandwagon, buy a new piece of hardware. Now, the horse may have already bolted for the PlayStation 5 versus the Xbox Series X. Just people I speak to, all they want from me is someone who plays games is a PS5. They're not interested. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how and whether people's culture changes when they start to realise that Call of Duty might not arrive on there. But by pulling it off, or by changing the yearly kind of model, you're disrupting what is essentially a very lucrative yearly franchise. And it's not like a Bethesda game that come every half a decade. It's a yearly franchise that you can rely on. You mean? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like there's life, there's death, there's taxes, and you'll get a Call of Duty game. So you can rely on that as a business, that you're going to get some sort of cash from that. So to remove that or to disrupt it, they're going to have to make some big plays.
Final big question, kind of about this in generalistic view of kind of Call of Duty. Do you think? I mean, I said I think it's going to Game Pass and staying exclusive. Does anybody on this panel think that Microsoft will put it on PlayStation because they don't want to lose them sales numbers? I mean, because I think you brought up a really good point, OTTAPPS, which I didn't even think about, which is it's almost putting the cart it's like almost you put your Trojan horse in there too late. Like the castle was already sieged, and so therefore like your Trojan horse really didn't do much. And so like and I don't know if, obviously we don't know the circumstances of exactly like if this scandal or the unfortunate things that happened to the employees at Activision Blizzard and that this caused the purchase. But if so, like if they bought it, if they intended to buy them and announced this like literally 18 months ago, who knows? Xbox might be the number one selling console right now.
Yeah, well, I think
so. Does someone think that, or does we all agree we think it's going to stay exclusive?
Well, I think this is Microsoft's opportunity to try and push the Game Pass service to other platforms, and to try and get it as an option for you on your PlayStation. It's what's interesting is the cloud aspect of it, because even that's creeping onto the console now. So when you go on Game Pass on your Xbox, you have the option. Well, do you want to install it locally, or you just want to launch it via the cloud right now and check it out? Which previously was only available on mobile. Then they branched off to browsers. Now it's on your Xbox console. You can just stream it, which I mean is a great option if you're unsure about a game and just want to test it out. So what does that mean? If they can get that onto a PlayStation.
So right now with this plan to acquire Activision, it would put them at above 30 studios. Now the question comes into play is, and the final one kind of about this Microsoft stuff, and then we'll move on to other aspects of this plan to acquire. Do you think that they are stepping in similar territory that EA did, where then they ended up shutting down a bunch of studios because they made all these purchases, and then EA is the place where you get bought and you die. And is that a similar situation that these studios are running into with how much Microsoft has been spending? Big Phil, good job on getting that promotion by spending daddy's money. Well, is he gonna be able to have these put out?
I can only assume he's discovered how to clone himself, and that's what the play is. It's the only way he can manage all these studios. So I expect the next couple of years we'll see that coming out of Microsoft, sort of Microsoft cloning. But
sorry. The other reason why I bring this up is because in a news story by Jason Schreier, he talked to employees at Activision Blizzard, and one of the fears was layoffs.
Yeah,
which is with any potential acquisition, you look at all the assets, and that's part of this process. They look at the assets and go, okay, can we cut corners somewhere? So is this 30 studios actually going to go down to 25 maybe by the end of the purchase, or do you think that some of them will fail and Microsoft will decide to part ways with many or consolidate these studios into other studios and increase their sizes and their teams? Like, what are your guys' thoughts in that realm about all these studios and how much they have acquired? Because that's a lot. It's a lot to manage.
They will synergize all of them together. I think so. Good point to EA, right? So video game companies get bought by EA and they go there to die. With Microsoft's track record, like, we haven't seen that yet, and they've been buying studios forever. Like, Rare is still around. So, and they've been there for a while. 343 Industries, all those other things. Double Fine Studios is there. Like, we see these names that we all love and know, and we haven't seen anything along those lines. We haven't heard of any large layoffs. We haven't heard of anything being consolidated. We haven't heard anything being destroyed. They still have 30 studios. So, could we see that in the future? Maybe. But based off of the track record so far, I doubt that. Maybe moving some of them and pushing them together, like putting In Exile and Double Fine together, or putting like Undead Labs and World's Edge together, maybe, and then building new studios out of that. But I doubt we'll see the destruction of any of these studios. I really think they're going to hold on to these as much as possible just to flex.
Let me just push back on your point just slightly and say Microsoft has not made a purchase this big before. They have purchased smaller studios. Bethesda was a pretty big purchase, but not at the size of Activision. I mean, I think it's like 4 times the amount of studios Activision holds compared to Bethesda. So we technically haven't seen anything this big, have we?
No, we haven't. But history speaks for itself.
Okay.
So,
yeah, I think. Go ahead, Dave.
All I was going to say is, I think Microsoft are building a content stream here. They've built themselves a content platform, and they need to keep putting new stuff on it. It's not in their interest to close down studios unless those studios are fundamentally broken and not working. So I don't think there's a real risk of any of these things going to the wall anytime soon, unless when they get in there and they get their hands on the books and it turns out that for whatever reason Studio X, Y, and Z has been entirely, utterly and ludicrously unsustainable for years and years and years, and they have to do something about it right now. So I don't think there's a real risk of these folding anytime soon.
Yeah, I don't.
I was. Sorry, Matt. You go.
No. Interrupt Matt. We're
fulfilling
McWomble's needs.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's his drug, right? We gotta give McWomble his drugs, which is interrupting Matt.
I was going to say that the benefit of Microsoft basically optically thinking of everything through the lens of their streaming service is that it's sort of like they don't really care about the success of just one particular studio, when like every studio can be lifted up by the big successes, and then they can afford to have the smaller studios with less well-known projects sort of have time to cultivate an audience. But I think that whole approach is sort of what Microsoft has taken. I think just through the lens, because if they see like on their service that hardly anybody is playing this random game from Toys for Bob, then that would work against that studio. I think it will be less of a metric of how much a game sells, but just how much people are playing that game.
Yeah, so I think there will be layoffs, but there's always layoffs with mergers and acquisitions. For all of the positions and the stuff that's redundant, that's always going to happen. So I don't think that we heard about it with Bethesda because it didn't affect the games and things that they were making and what was going on there. We may hear about it with Activision because it's going to be a large number of people that just are doing the exact same job that somebody at Microsoft is already doing and is now in charge of, So in terms of the media, we'll probably hear about it. It always happens with, when large companies either buy another large company or they merge. So you're always going to have redundancy.
So
yeah, there's always overlap. There's always overlap, and you have to reduce that.
So with the plan to acquire, there's actually two huge things that are going to happen, which is one, Activision Blizzard is one of the companies that has had the most talks of unionization. And actually there is Raven Studios that has just announced their intent to unionize as a studio. Microsoft will be in the middle of this. And Microsoft is a big company. And I think Phil's statements basically said we're aware of the situation, we're all for good environments for our employees, but not necessarily saying we're all for the unionization of our studios. Now, we have seen, and specifically I'm talking about America, America has been dealing with actually a huge bump in unionization recently in regards to unions also forcing their hands against big companies. John Deere, a tractor company, a huge tractor company here in the United States, their workers went on strike for 2.5 months to get better benefits for their employees after John Deere was making record profits. I think they were making, if I remember right, they were making like $10 billion additional to what they made before, and they were not willing to give it to their employees. But anyways, so, and then the other thing is Starbucks, one of the largest coffee companies here in America in regards to baristas and stuff, one place in Buffalo unionized, and now there is, I believe, 30 sites planning on having votes to unionize, and they all said they are starting to do it because one started it. How is Microsoft going to deal with this? Because something like Starbucks, even Amazon, had sent people to tell you do their best to not break the law, which some of them clearly were breaking the law, and they just didn't. And one of them got caught. Amazon got caught, and now they have to re-vote on a unionization on a location because they got caught cheating. Is Microsoft going to have to fight this? Or what are they going to do? Like, this is a huge thing for them internally to come into a situation where you have a union potentially forming around you that could fundamentally change all of Microsoft, because if they do that, what if another studio decides to try to unionize?
Well, I think if they're smart, they would basically let them continue with what they're doing until they've actually purchased them. And then they would answer to every one of the complaints that they have and every one of the problems they have. And they would make them feel as though they didn't need a union. Because under this new management, they have basically every goal and every thing satisfied them. I think they would do that. I don't think they want to crush it in a public way or anything like that, because it's just too much. I have my problems with unionization in the games industry, but that often isn't to do with unions being a terrible idea in terms of... I feel like unions are probably a great idea on an individual studio basis, but I think too many times you get people with coming up with an idea that's supposed to fit everybody else's situation and not just one specific studio culture.
Well, one thing to your point, Liam, is so because of this plan to acquire, Microsoft cannot do anything with Activision in regards to business wise. Bobby Kotick has to remain neutral in this situation, and Big Phil can't give him a phone call and say, "Hey, I want you to do this," and then Bobby Kotick does this. Like, that's not legal.
So that's a good point.
So
He's gonna bust the unions.
So the thing is, like, this transaction might not happen until mid 2023. That's a year from now. So like if a studio decides to unionize before Microsoft even gets there, they're going to deal with a union when they get there. Compared to a year is not long enough, is too long of a time period to, especially with the sexual harassment allegations to all these issues. I'm sorry, I did not mean the quotes for allegations. But like they don't have the time or the convenience to be able to come in and say, hey, everything's gonna be okay. This is what we're gonna do as Microsoft, because they haven't finished the acquisition, so they can't do that. So like they might walk into a situation where they've already unionized.
I'm gonna echo similar sentiments to Liam. I mean, you guys know how I feel about unions in the video game space. It's one thing for a warehouse or a factory worker. It's another for a college-educated professional, right? I think Microsoft is able to answer every one of the complaints that they have and address them in a way that is going to be far superior than any outcome from being unionized. So I think that the problem resolves itself, both from the corporate standpoint and from the employee standpoint.
But again, Microsoft can't talk to them. So like you expect Activision Blizzard to ease their minds between now and then?
Once the acquisition goes through.
But that's a year. Like right now, Ravensoft has said they plan to unionize like this week. Like they have so Microsoft, like what can Activision do in 1 year is Bobby Kotick going to try to like prevent them from doing this so it doesn't make Big Phil upset?
I think it's damage control until that.
But just because they unionize doesn't mean they're beholden to be in a union forever. Like that's something that can easily be solved over a few cups of tea and a few meetings, like when Microsoft buys them.
I don't think they'll drink tea here.
Or cups of coffee.
I was gonna say, I don't think they're drinking tea, having some cups of tea over here.
I mean, if I was talking to Microsoft, I would want that to be on good faith, rather than if I was talking to some prick like Bobby Kotick, who definitely doesn't have your best interests at heart,
Corey, what do you think?
So we've seen something like this happen. Lionbridge did this, which was a small group of some temporary workers, and they technically won. And so they signed a union contract within Microsoft, obviously underneath a whole bunch of specialized rules and all this other stuff. But technically, they won. So would Microsoft be open to something like this? Possibly. I understand that there'd be, even if they brought this union in as is, I'm sure there would be a lot of negotiations, a lot of discussion. Also, Microsoft has, I'm sure, way better lawyers. So, and all the money to throw at this. So, and they have time. So we'll see. I'll be watching it. I'm very interested. I agree, Matt. Same thing. Like damage control, just stall as long as humanly possible. Kotick's just like, meet next week, next month, next year. Like it'll just keep happening, and we're like, oh, another meeting pushed off.
Well, that's actually what can happen. So I've done some research about like when you vote and you decide to vote to create a union. You have I think it's about 2 years to get your contract done with the employer. And what happens is they stall. They stall for the longest time possible to try to convince them to kick out of this union instead of just like, you guys intended to do this. Let's finalize the contract. And then you can negotiate after that of being like, okay, let's get off this union if you don't like it. OTTAPPS, what do you think? You're kind of the last one left.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know you could stall for that long, Mitch. So my assumption was that this would be in place by the time Big Phil takes over the reins, and then it's up to them to offer a compelling package to the workers to say you don't need to.
So he might be thrown in the middle of it.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to the point that Microsoft are inheriting somewhat of a sickly business here. There's business-wise, revenue-wise, great, but there is a lot of issues that are under the bonnet here that they're going to have to sort out culturally. And if in between now and when the merger takes place, if there's an exodus of staff because the conditions aren't improving quick enough, not that I'm saying that Raven necessarily is going to have a huge impact on that, but that's something that they would have looked at and said, well, whilst we're requiring this, it'd be great to have that team there because we've got ideas for them. So it's a sticky one, and I wouldn't want to be one of Phil Spencer's clones trying to sort all this out in 18 months.
Before I go to Erebus, I just want to... Commander Fett made a comment. He said, usually big tech companies try to... when big tech companies try to unionize, it isn't over pay or benefits. It's over moral and ethical concerns and having a bigger say in how the company runs their businesses. So that's something just to consider on the side as well. Erebus, you're the last. Actually, OTTAPPS was not the last. You are the last one to reign on this one. What is your thoughts about Bobby? Bobby Kotick has to deal with this potential unionization of his studios, and then Big Phil might have to deal with it in the middle of that process, or if they've already decided to unionize, he has to negotiate the contract. How do you think they're going to handle that?
To be honest with you, to do anything other than support the people that are trying to do it would be very off-brand for what Phil is talking and behaving like right now. So I feel, to be honest with you, they're probably going to take a step back and let it play out type scenario with that. I don't think they're going to go hard in one way or the other. I think, like say, it would be completely off key for him to do anything other than almost pretty much get behind them and support them. They've been a very open and encouraging company about everything so far. They say all the right things you want them to hear about all of the topics. That these sorts of things generally work around, like crunch and those kinds of things. So my honest expectation is that I just don't think this is an issue for Microsoft particularly. I think this is an issue for the wider games industry, and Raven will do what Raven do, and Microsoft will just deal with what happens after the fact. I don't think this is much bigger than that.
I think it'll be really interesting. I think you bring up a good point of the perception Phil has done with Microsoft over the last, let's say, the 6 years or so, 7 years, maybe the decade, which is that for the gamers, for the game industry, all that kind of stuff. But then at the same time, like when I think about it too, like Microsoft also pushed 343 Industries into hard crunch mode with Halo Infinite, with a game that was clearly not ready to be released, and instead of giving it the proper time it needed to say, okay, I mean, to be honest, in my brain, I like to give that campaign what it should have deserved, because I think I'd really like the gameplay of it. I wish they had another year on the project to, be able to really get some of those other ideas in their fruition, because it was pretty basic campaign. But anyways, what I'm trying to say is basically it'll just be really interesting, because Phil does have that personality, that mentality in the public perception, but he also is a business guy, and he will be CEO of Microsoft Gaming. And I'm telling you, those higher ups in Microsoft probably are talking to Phil and saying, hey, we do not want them to unionize, so you need to keep this perception. But I could see them doing, which could backfire on them because of how tech savvy everyone is. These studios are willing to talk to journalists that, like, an example is what I'm saying is when a Amazon place wanted to unionize a worker place, they would put up anti-union posters. They would make them sit through anti-union seminars. Like, that is something that could happen, not exactly like that way, but it could happen, and it could leak. And then that could be a bad look for them. So it's a potential. I don't know what's going to happen, though.
Think about it this way, though. You've got... when was the last time we heard anything bad in regards to the corporate culture at Microsoft?
We just did about Halo Infinite, though.
No.
Well, in terms of the crunch, but not in terms of the same level of sexual harassment and things like that. Well,
we didn't hear about it because it went through mediation, but they did release a story that Microsoft did deal with sexual harassment within their company, and they did fire the employee, which was good for them that they did the right thing. But it was under NDA.
every large company has those instances, but in terms of it,
But
being
it goes against,
widespread-
but it goes against what they say about transparency, and that's the thing. It's like say one thing to the
Well-
public and hide the other stuff.
I
No, that's what I'm
don't think
saying,
that's
like,
fair at all.
doesn't
You're
work.
talking about individual privacy issues there as well. It just
Yeah.
because something happens in a company doesn't necessarily make it public knowledge or there's a public interest there. If there
But
was
it's
an
the
incident
company's
that
interest to
happened and they
keep it
dealt with
private. That's the thing.
Well, it might have been in the individual's interest. You know, maybe somebody just doesn't want this to be a story that gets out. It got dealt with. Everybody was happy to move on. I mean, the issue that hit Activision was the fact that nobody was dealing with the issue. They were ignoring it. They were letting the guilty get off. That isn't what happened here. The guilty got punished. The guilty got removed, and then there's, you know, a bit of a secrecy bubble around it. Because to be honest with you, it's nobody's business other than the people that were involved in it. In that particular instance, it was dealt with. If the people are happy. I don't think it's a bigger deal than that.
Well,
I
let's.
also-
I was gonna say,
think bringing up the crunch issue is it feels like a pointless argument and a pointless road to go down, because there really isn't any games company in the industry that hasn't dealt with the crunch problem. You know, it's just a problem that people are trying to mitigate slowly, and it's a difficult problem to solve. But it isn't something that anyone in the industry isn't guilty of in some way.
I mean, I was gonna say, Insomniac made it very clear that they don't do crunch, which
Insomniac has done crunch. I you know, like, good for them, but at the same time, like, that it's not all sunshine and rainbows.
anyways, kind of moving to the similar topic, which is this sexual harassment issue that they have or has. We don't know if it's still happening. I'm at Activision Blizzard. There's still the investigation by the state of California on the company itself happening in this process. How does that all kind of happen and work through? Is like, again, this is kind of to the public perception of what again, Microsoft is a company and they're going for their best interests. Are they going to push back as much, or not? In my mind, I don't think they'll push back as much, but I think they will push back against secretly hidden push back against the investigation because they don't want more to come out about what's been happening. Or do you guys think that's what's going to happen? Like, what's your thoughts on that?
Under new management, that's the sign that goes up at the storefront, and they provide the state of California what the state of California wants to see in terms of the policies and procedures that are in place for dealing with this stuff. You know, I don't think it's an issue moving forward.
I was just going to ask, wouldn't you want all of that information to be as public as possible? Like, look how terrible this company was under prior management, and look how much better it's going to be under us. Like, they have nothing to lose by exposing all of Activision's dirty laundry.
But do you think it's a bad look for them because they paid out Bobby Kotick? He gets to walk away with billions of dollars.
Yeah, but if they hadn't, all of those people would still be under his supreme control.
But do you think? I mean, and this is a what if scenario, obviously, but there was a lot of pressure on him. Like he might have. There's potential he could have gotten kicked out before that. Like it was still going down on him. Like it was not like cookies and rainbows. The stock price was tanking. They were starting to, they might have lost faith in him and kicked him out.
So Kotick is.
So instead, he gets to walk away with billions of dollars instead of potentially walking away with nothing and getting kicked off the board.
He was always going to walk away with lots of money.
Yeah, he earned his reputation from building Activision back up. He's a businessman through and through, which is why I think that this is less of Microsoft buying Activision Blizzard King and more of Activision Blizzard King selling to Microsoft.
Corey, you're shaking your head. Talk about it.
Oh no, I agree. I agree with Matt on this one. So, regardless, no matter what's going to happen, right? Even if Kotick was gone and this wasn't a merger or anything, he's still going to get his golden parachute. That's still going to happen. It's still a contract. He's still been there. They have to honor that part. They can't just be like, well, you know what? You gave us bad press, so we're just going to take it all away.
But
Sucker.
he was accused of sexual harassment.
Absolutely, he
So
absolutely
that's
was.
easy way to cut him without paying him, because it's against their clause about probably good. Actually,
In
it probably
what world?
actually it might not be, because they just stated after this that sexual harassment isn't appropriate and is worth firing for.
Literally all the Blizzard employees that were just being let go for all of this crap, they all got golden parachutes. They didn't get cut off and not given anything. They
But
all
it was
left.
hidden.
Sure, it was hidden, but it's all internal. It's all internal BS, right? Like, there's nothing. We don't get all of those public information. There's not a lot of that transparency in the video game world, and that's it with every video game company. I've worked for large companies that have done this before and that have all of this dirty laundry in the back that is bad, if not worse, than what these people have gone through, and it never hit the public eye because they just kept it quiet and they just wanted to have a better perception of themselves. So the idea that they're going to let Kotick go and appease everybody by taking all of his money is not going to happen. It's just not realistic. They're going to say, hey, here's your golden parachute, get out. And then Microsoft will stand on their island and go, look, we kicked him out. Ta-da! We win. We're awesome. We're great because we got rid of Bobby. And that's the goal. That's the perception. You want, hey, we're removing the jerk to make this a better company. How that was done is not at all important. The fact that he's gone is the most important part. And that's what I think is going to happen when Phil Spencer takes over.
Yeah.
I think everyone's in agreement.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah.
which for the record, fellas,
there's another interesting story on this, though. It's how you rehabilitate those. So Blizzard, in particular, has taken a big kick in over the past sort of 6 to 9 months, which, as a massive fan, is a real shame because they've made some of my favorite games of all time. I have absolutely no desire. Yeah, I've absolutely no desire to see them disappear because of the actions of one or two terrible people, right? And I think it would be a real shame for gaming if that happens. But I'm quite excited now that actually this feels like a fresh start. It feels like an opportunity for somebody to come in, wipe the slate clean, and go, you know what? Blizzard is a premium gaming brand. It is a studio that makes fantastic games, and it should continue to do so without all of the stigma that currently flies over it, and the fact that anyone brings it up and like, oh, with all the inappropriate parties and all of the touching at work and stuff like that, all of that goes. And if nothing else as well, on a slight detour on this point as well, when this goes through, Microsoft are going to get Battle.net. And is there not just a perfect synergy here, right? The Game Pass on PC is perfectly fine. It's not a terrible piece of software at all. There are definitely worse things out there. But come on, Microsoft, put Game Pass into Battle.net. Make Battle.net your Game Pass on PC service. Do it. But anyway, that off topic.
No, it's a good point of like what you do with all the assets you have. Like that's definitely a mentality they could go into having. And just for the record, for the people listening and watching, I am pushing back on these people because I'm trying to be a good host. Not necessarily I believe all the things I'm saying back at these fellas, just for the record.
These people.
Wow, these people. All right, no, heard.
I just want to make sure that people understand of it makes for interesting conversation if I push back against your ideas, not necessarily is my idea of what I think will happen. Because I think I agree with all of you. There's no way that he was getting off scot-free. I mean, I wish I could pull him out of the boardroom and say, you little motherfucker, get out of my room. Because, McWomble's always said, get Mitch in the room. I should replace Bobby Kotick. That's what should happen. Anyways, I think we've covered everything from Microsoft's end, unless we're missing anything that you guys wanted to talk about for Microsoft, because I think we have one other big thing we should talk about in this aspect, but...
I'm okay. So Dave started the hopes and dreams of what happens after this acquisition is completed, right? Do any of us have because I'm really curious to see if Microsoft does anything with the Sierra stuff. Like, are they gonna bring any of those games back? Are they gonna maybe pass some IP?
Hold on, before you get to that, because I think there's one more thing we're going to talk about with the gaming world, and then I want to talk a little bit about this. Is this too cornering the market too much as corporate consolidation? So PlayStation, where does this put PlayStation? They have
Man.
lost. They have lost one of their biggest titles that is a non-first party title. Call of Duty now. For the record, Call of Duty has done the flip flopping before in regards to giving exclusivity to certain things. In regards to DLC or comes first to, they did it with. It originally was with the Xbox 360, and then when the fubble of the Xbox One, sports games, all that came out, then they flip-flopped and went to PlayStation for the PlayStation 4 era, and then they kind of stuck with them on PlayStation 5. So, like, it does have a history of flip-flopping between consoles, that it hasn't been like Final Fantasy, where it was solely on PlayStation for a long-ass time, and then it made a flip-flop. What do you think is the future? Like, I know Liam has a very interesting point, and I will get to him, but I do want to get to the other people because I think in case they have another option they're going to go with.
So what interesting point do I have? I can't remember.
Do you remember your bold prediction on Discord?
Which one?
Okay, let's just talk about it. His bold prediction
was... I mouth off quite a lot.
So his bold prediction, which I think is an interesting one. Do I think it's going to happen? No. But it is an interesting topic to discuss, which is, will Big Phil step into Big Jim's office and say, look at my Call of Duty, you put Game Pass on, and I'll give it to you. And say, put Game Pass on PlayStation, which brings two interesting points. One, it'd have to be streamed of the cloud unless they make it for the hardware of PlayStation. That's what they would have to develop it specifically for. It would have to develop it multi-platform, and then they could download it on. But if they're just saying, we're going to put Game Pass on there, but we're not going to make it for your hardware, so you have to stream it via the cloud, because you can plug in PlayStation controllers into your Xbox and play them via the cloud if you want to. That is an option. So, like, it is there for you. But what do you guys think?
Sony would never be up for a deal like that. I'm going to just first point out. My whole theory is I think people don't realise that having Game Pass on everything possible, including PlayStation, has been Microsoft's goal from the start. Like, that's what they want. Like, whether Game Pass ends up on PlayStation isn't up to Microsoft. It's whether Sony will let them.
Yeah.
Whether
will Big Jim say, yes, Big Phil, you can throw your Call of Duty in my console?
It's whether Big Jim isn't a fucking idiot and he just accepts the reality of his situation now.
Well, okay.
Before, it was like, oh, it will eventually happen. Now it's like, this needs to happen sooner or later.
All right, let's break this down to two. One, okay, and then first we'll start off, do you think this would happen? And then two, let's just break down. Do you think this will happen? First off, like, I don't think it's gonna happen, but let's go around the room. OTTAPPS, do you think this will happen?
No, I think there's a compelling case that it maybe should. They should just sort of bend the knee here and say, okay, let's be a bit more of a partnership rather than clashing. Because if a full-blown bloody war breaks out, we've seen the war chest of what Microsoft are willing to do. There's only going to be one winner if it comes down to that. So I think they need to get their egos in check. Whether they will or not, I just don't think they will. I just can see them putting up the walls, doubling down, and seeing whether it pays off. They, like I said, they may well have this generation in good stead because of the fast start they've made. But you know, the next cycle.
Funny question: does Microsoft own the franchise Bloody Wars? Or is it Bloody Roar? Sorry, it's Bloody Roar. Sorry, Bloody Roar. That's a great game. Anyway, I don't know who I want to say.
But won't is my.
I'm trying to think of a name to say of one of you guys, but I'm blanking on all your names right now. Burkoff.
So
okay, start talking.
I think Sony. Yeah, Sony has two options here, right? They have the direct competition route, which
they are making their own streaming service.
Right, which seems to be the way that they're going, or they have the cooperative route. I think the direct competition route is where they're headed. They're merging, Now and Plus and building their own service. So, we'll see if it's enough to get people, for people to be happy. Sony has, at least in terms of the PlayStation, has had a track record of being very consumer ignorant and making decisions that are not in the consumer's best interest. So We'll see.
I
if
I
they're able to do
apologize.
anything.
People are missing out if they did not watch the video feed because I totally spilt a lot of water down my shirts while you were talking.
I was trying to keep it together. Damn it!
You were doing well, Matt. I won't lie, because I was like, oh, I gotta go on mute.
That's a lot. Of,
Mitch done fucked up.
that was like this much water, guys. I'm used to squeezing the bottle, but it makes so much noise, so I was just gonna drink it. But
Or you get a kid's bottle that's got a little nub on it, and then you can't.
well,
Just tuck it away.
I
and
have
then you do what you
one,
want with it.
but it makes so much noise when I slurp it that it makes that like the suction noise. So like I'm just like okay. Sorry. Go ahead,
At least it
Erebus
wasn't
Jones.
Gatorade.
Do you agree
Very
with him?
sticky.
Yeah, I agree with what Matt says. I don't think that it's likely that it's going to happen anytime soon at all. I think until such times as Sony starts hurting, they're not going to move on this. I think they're going to give their Spartacus program a go, and you're going to have to see that become completely inconsequential before Sony will even entertain the idea. So no, for the rest of this generation, not a chance in hell. I don't think this becomes a likelihood unless Sony get desperate. But I think one of the interesting things that's happening here is there's a bit of a cultural split now. So Microsoft seem to have an awful lot of Western video games covered now. A lot of the premium Western video games. Obviously, ignore the Sony of America stuff, which is obviously cream of the crop. But pretty much everything else is now Microsoft exclusive or in Game Pass. There's very little sort of Western top end gaming that's now sort of available for Sony to go after. But on the flip, when it comes to sort of Japanese culture, Japanese gaming, Microsoft had barely touched any of it, whereas all of it's still in play. So you're going to end up, I think, with this kind of weird cultural drift where actually PlayStation becomes the platform if you really want to go and indulge in sort of Japanese games. And I think that's what Sony doubled down on now. They're the place that you go and play that sort of thing, because Microsoft don't seem to be either able to or interested in following suit.
Well, they do have Final Fantasy 16, 15. Which one do they have?
16.
16. They have
16.
They have the exclusivity
Yeah.
of 16. So like that would make sense in your argument about Sony going the Western route, and they have been trying to hold up some exclusive deals. But at the same time, well, I guess IDOS is in America, so that doesn't. But it's Square Enix is
can't
still
be
a
trusted.
company.
They're absolute mercenaries. They will take money from anyone. They will. You cut them a check, they will be like, "Yeah, we'll put it on there. Thank you." Pocket that.
But I actually, it brings up an interesting, the way you bring it up, Erebus, and everyone's been making this comparison, because you said Sony's first party is first rate, second to none. And it kind of makes up an interesting argument to say, is Microsoft turning into like your run of the mill Kohl's? Now when I say Kohl's, it's a clothing store. They're kind of everywhere. It's not like Target where it's like readily accessible, but it's general. It's a general like clothing place you could go to, and they have some. They try to make.
I'm really confused where this is going.
Anyways, that they.
I know what he's trying to say.
TK Maxx
hold on,
rich
hold on,
people.
Yeah,
hold on.
pretty much. That's what
Yes.
we're
Okay.
going
Okay. Cool. That they have some higher end stuff, but it's not like it's made to be cheaper for the average consumer. And then like I see Microsoft being that right now, and then Sony's going like the Gucci route, where Sony's like being, because you think about it, it's like mass produced, super cheap in regards to Game Pass, and then you have Sony who's still charging. And then we'll have to see how the streaming service goes and what their plans are for it, because they have made it clear they are not putting their first party on the service. So you are paying a premium for that first party title, which people are willing to pay. But that's like everyone's like, oh, I got my one Gucci bag, and everyone's really excited about it. Like, is that the route that these two companies are going? Sony's going the boutique market, while Microsoft is trying to be the Target everywhere, every place, super cheap.
I shop at Kohl's. And
I used to work at Kohl's. That's why I brought it up. That put me through high school.
There's definitely some truth in what you're saying there, but there's a couple of things here that we should keep in mind. One is like all of the stuff that Microsoft sort of bought into and announced, none of that's come to fruition yet. So you've got Starfield coming, you've got all of the other things that they answered, Fable, Perfect Dark, you've got all of these things that new Microsoft, not Ballmer's Microsoft, like Phil Spector's Microsoft are now following and pursuing. So this gap between quality in first party, I fully expect that to close over the next couple of years entirely. But the other thing as well is that Microsoft, as we already called out, they've got like 30 studios. Of those 30 studios, probably 10 or 15 of them are proper big, like AAA studios. Sony don't have that kind of volume, which means Sony are really vulnerable to a fuck up. Like if a couple of these games, which at the moment have absolutely blemish-free reputations for great quality, if a couple of these games come out and kind of miss the mark, that takes a hit then, doesn't it? And that then becomes more and more like you go in a situation at the minute where God of War came out and it was absolutely amazing. Horizon Zero Dawn came out and it was absolutely amazing, right? Do we honestly think the next two games are going to reach those heights again? Or exceed those heights and keep that train going? Where is the next trendsetter coming from? I think Sony they're up here at the minute with the quality of their games, which makes it even harder to go there and there and there and there, but it makes it a lot easier to come down. And I think there's a precarious position between the two. I don't think that Sony can rest on the laurels and just assume that just because they are very good now, they will always be very good. Because as I say, with 2 or 3 studios pumping these games out, they are very susceptible to a brain fart in producing a duffer and ruining it all.
I get what you're saying, and I think that's just because of what they've currently have been releasing. I mean, they have a lot of projects in the pipeline. They have that it's similar in the scope of Microsoft, where it's Sony's got heavy hitters, a lot of heavy hitters, and compared to Microsoft, they're at least coming out. But they're similar to Microsoft, where they have a lot in the backlog, that they have a lot of exclusive deals that are still in progress. They got what's her name from Google.
No, I appreciate there's lots and lots coming, but there isn't as much, and because of what they're doing as well, their whole business model is built on the idea that you will give me £70 to play this game, and I will give you the best in class game in order for you to play and enjoy.
For sure.
And that is a fair trade. But then the second that game is not best in class, and all of a sudden when the guy over the road is giving away games that are as good as the games you're giving away, but he's asking for £10 a month, whereas you want 70 quid for each instance, that's when they become that's when they're at risk. And that's not going to happen this year. It's probably not going to happen next year. But Microsoft aren't thinking in short terms, in medium term. Microsoft are making these moves. They're thinking about the next generation and the generation after that. They're playing 4D chess. This is the start of like Independence Day right now. Microsoft are putting all of their big spaceships over all of the big capitals, and sometime in 2030 they're going to blow everything up.
I agree, 100%. 100% agree with that. Yeah. And in the end of the day, content is king, right? So I have a PlayStation 5, and I don't play shit on it because there's nothing to play. There's like 6 games. That's it. You know why? Because everything else can be played on PlayStation 4. So congrats. So I have this PlayStation 5, this amazing next-gen hardware, that I don't have anything to play on. I could play upgraded versions of all of these already great games, but I don't have any like PS5 exclusives. Now they're coming. They are coming. That is very aware. But right now, Microsoft has Game Pass and a slew of titles that I can just kick on whenever I want. Put it on my PC, play it on my Xbox. My son plays them all the time. For $14.99, I'm not blowing $70 for a game that I'm going to beat in a weekend, right? That's my thing. You're going to give me a game and you're like, $70, Corey, congratulations. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to play it, I'm going to beat it, and then what I'm going to do? Wait for the next one in 6 months? Cool.
No, you get the platinum trophy. Come on, let's do it properly.
That's right. Gotta max out to 100. Gotta get all the trophies. But that's the thing is like, so if content is key. Content has always been a key. Switch is winning because content is key for mobile, right? Switch is winning because it's got so many games coming out on a regular basis or moving over. Steam, we've seen this. Steam's been around forever. We all have a Steam library that we talk about because we all have a bunch of games that we'll never play, but they all sit there because we all buy them because content is key. So now you're telling me the Game Pass is going to have all of these titles, all this accessibility for $14.99 a month, and I can turn it on and off whenever I want. So I can be like, hey, you know what? Assassin's Creed Valhalla. We'll use that for example. Say that comes out on Game Pass, right? Oh, I'm going to turn it on. I'm going to play it for a month. I'm going to turn it off. I spend $14.99. I play a bunch of little titles here and there. I'm good to go. I don't have to buy it once. I can continuously play it, or it takes me 2 months. Okay, or I find some stuff I like to play 3 months, and then, okay, I'm done with those games for a while, I'm going to turn it off. Xbox is leading that charge right now. Whether it's a AAA title or not, you have to also consider the younger generations. Like, we're speaking of this as older generations. We've been playing games since, God was a little baby.
Hey, some of us are quite still young on here. Some of us
You're
are still
like-
in our 20s.
Aw, it's so cute. Go play Minecraft. So my son, on the other hand, my son and my daughter are that generation to play video games. My son is 9 years old and my daughter is 16. They are playing where content is available. Do you think that they're playing AAA titles or give a shit? No. Do they have $70? Do I have $70? Absolutely not. But Mojang is owned currently. Mojang, one of the largest games of Minecraft in the world that every teenager is playing or streaming on Twitch, is under Microsoft's umbrella. So, I mean, this generation is going to grow up on Game Pass. And what is a kid going to do? Is he going to pay $14.99 a month and play a library of games? Or is he going to spend $70 and then wait until his next birthday to play video games?
The parent will make that choice, and you as a parent will do the Game Pass route, won't you?
Hell yeah, $14.99. Let's go. Both y'all can play. Let's roll. Yeah. So, like, from not just content, from monetary perspective, from an adult perspective, what am I gonna buy? I'm not gonna buy $70 for a game to be beaten in a weekend. I'm gonna get $14, and my son can play. He downloads stuff on the Xbox all the time. He's got an Xbox S. He downloads it. He's like, oh, I don't like this. Uninstall it. Download the next one, and he can do that whenever he feels like it. I don't have to buy 1,000 of them. This is the new Blockbuster, is what this is. You can rent this, is what you can do.
Your kids must be too old because. You're still on. Okay, someone disappeared, and then I wanted to make sure that it was all there.
Mitch kicked Dave off. What's he doing?
Erebus had to run.
Oh, okay. So basically, I was going to say, Corey, your kids must be a little too old because Commander Fett says Minecraft is old news. It's all about Roblox.
Oh, Roblox. Okay, so my son also plays Roblox, which, guess what, is on Microsoft.
Anyway, so let's pivot. So, like, we will get to your hopes and dreams, Berghoff. I promise it'll be the last thing we talk about. But let's talk about, because we're talking about this.
All your nightmares.
We're talking about the market right now, and I think it's important to point out now, personally for me, I am actually very not for this acquisition. I don't care who was making the purchase. I don't care if it was Nintendo, EA, Sony. I don't care. I'm not for this. For this reason. Is there a big issue in regards to corporate consolidation and cornering the market? We took a big boy off the board, fellas. A big boy is off the board that has dozens of studios, makes dozens of games. And my argument is this could go back against the consumer. Now, I know at the moment it's not. And I get the mentality. We have Game Pass. It's $15.99 a month if you want to get Game Pass Ultimate and be able to play all your games that you want. But considering this standpoint, and people don't know what's corporate consolidation, that is bigger companies eating up smaller companies and taking a bigger chunk of the market. And so let me just compare this to a couple companies really quick, and then we can get into, like, is this corporate consolidation or not? Is it concerning? Let's just look at two markets that I've been doing a lot of research in recently, which is the airlines. We have 4 major airlines now that corner 85% of the market. 4. Before that, we had 20. And what happened was a bunch of them bought each other out and created these 4 giant airlines. What ended up happening? One of the airlines decided to charge for checking in your bag, that $30, $15 check-in fee. Because it brought in $4 billion that year, and this was 10 years ago. It's like, it brought in that much money. The other 3 said, if one's going to do it, we might as well all do it. And all of a sudden you cornered the market because you don't have a third-party competitor. You do, but they're too small. They don't have airlines that fly in convenient locations where you don't have to charge for the checked bag. But the 4 major ones that own 85% of the market do that. We see that with games. One company decided to charge $70 when clearly they do not need to charge $70. Guess what? Everyone else followed. That is a potential that if we keep consolidating, things can happen like that. Microsoft can start charging if they start buying up too many companies to say, oh, you want to play all these list of games? We're going to charge you $30 a month for this. Now, I'm just saying, like, it's just a throw out there. But the final thing is, we got to consider also that these are companies and they're here to make profits. They're here to uphold their stakeholders. They're not here for you and me. Let's be truthfully honest about this. Now, also with this economy that has happened recently, especially in America, we've been dealing with inflation, which has increased in prices due to constraints in different areas. We could talk about all those areas, but let's just get to this part where companies are not for you, because if you look at this, the meat packing industry in America, there's 4 to 5 big meat packers in the entire United States. When this inflation came up this year, like we have had inflation and they had to raise their prices. This year, they are making record profits. Now tell me how that happens. If you are increasing your prices where they stated they were doing it to cover for inflation, but you're still making record profits, it means you're upcharging. It means you're charging even more than what the inflation cost is so that you make even more profits. And you're using inflation as an excuse. This could be an excuse for Microsoft to charge more for Game Pass and corner the market more for people to say, you can't have access to these games unless you're paying me $30 a month for this product. So like, it's just something to consider. What do you guys think about that? I know it's a lot. I rambled a lot, but.
I just want to say that, first of all, the price of Game Pass is going to go up eventually. You should get that. You should get used to that idea, because it's going to happen. And it should happen. Like, the value of that thing is crazy, and it's only going to get better. But I think the main problem I have with those comparisons, personally, is, the airline markets being consolidated, meat packing, car companies, all of those sorts of things. Well, less so car companies, actually, now I think about it. But consolidation can be a very bad thing for the consumer. But when there is enough competition going around, I don't think that's so much of a problem. I think this acquisition is kind of scary when you're looking at it, in the industry. It's a big change from what we used to, but I don't think it's this great big alarm bell that a lot of people are indicating. So I think consolidation was going to happen whether we liked it or not. There are a bunch of interests in the games industry because they're seeing how much money people are making from it. Then they realize, oh my goodness, this is a boon. Like, we could make so much money from this industry. And much to what Phil Spencer said, he's right about other people, tech companies like Amazon and Google, especially
Apple.
Google. Yeah, and Apple, that they don't understand the market. And I do think if they were to enter, I mean, it just shows, look at the way Google acted with Stadia. And it's just an unmitigated disaster. If any of those entities were to break into the market, it would be a complete and utter travesty. I think if EA had bought ActiVision, that would have been terrible, because they would have shut down a bunch of their studios, probably got them to work on their franchise that they can't get right, like Battlefield and God knows what else. But
They don't have any.
and then if Facebook was to buy Activision, well, they'd probably just make them do exactly what they were doing, and if not that, they'd probably get them to work on a bunch of VR games.
No, they're going to work them on a AAA Farmville game. Let's be honest, guys. AAA Farmville, that's exactly what you want. Not called Harvest Moon.
It's called Stardew Valley.
That's a real potential for that. And I think the truth of the matter is that the safest hands is with the people who understand the value of the way the industry is. And the games industry is going to evolve and change whether we like it or not. Like, especially if streaming services become a thing. That just changes the way things work. And I think rather than a company like Tencent or Google or Apple getting these things, I think it's very good that Microsoft seems to want to have a relationship with Sony and doesn't want to exactly shut them out of the industry. Because I think the way things are now with Sony, Nintendo, and Microsoft is they all understand the industry and all keep it in a way that we like it. But if anybody else was to encroach on that, I think it could have very negative consequences.
Burkhoff, it looks like you want to say something.
Yeah, well, I was going to say to the point of corporate consolidation, this is going to be an extremely simplistic comparison, but if you look at AT&T Time Warner, and you think about the two major areas that they did business in terms of like phones and cable, and then you look at the fact that you can get an Apple phone with any company now, not just AT&T. The fact that probably none of us subscribe to cable, and if we do, it's only for sports. And
Or you stream
people
it.
like Elon, or you find enough to watch it. And then you have people like Elon Musk that are shooting micro satellites into space and creating his own phone and changing the way that telecommunications work. I think we underestimate the innovation that happens and how these giant corporations can topple. So even if they are merged together and right now are seemingly immovable. Sears and Roebuck. Who the fuck shops at Sears? Nobody. You know what I mean? They don't exist really anymore. So I think down the line, yeah, it's concerning now, but innovation, technology, and what consumers want ultimately controls the market. And so while it's concerning that this is they take up a huge swath of the gaming landscape right now, it's temporary. That's my take.
OTTAPPS?
Yeah, I think if you look through it with the lens of that someone was likely to pick up Activision because, it's a pretty good deal of the stock price being low because of the troubles they've had, revenues ticking in.
They were looking to sell as well.
They were looking to sell. Like, this is about as good an outcome as you could probably hope for if you look through it through that lens and believe that was going to happen regardless. Because the likes of, like Liam mentioned, like imagine if Google came in and said, "Yeah, we're going to buy Activision Blizzard. You can only play it on Stadia. Goodbye."
Oh.
And that is something that they would be stupid enough to do. And how badly would that disrupt the market and make that worse for us? So, it's big money. These corporations are making big plays. There's so many publishers and studios out there still that I don't think it's overly concerning just yet in terms of how much Microsoft has. I feel like I'm drinking the sort of Phil Spencer Kool-Aid sometimes, but I think he does have reasonably good intentions for the industry. I don't know if one of his clones does. That's the only thing about cloning is they might, they go off.
The one that goes to the corporate men is the one that talks shit about everything.
Yeah, but if I and that's the lens I choose to look for it because I just think that there's big money players that have been sniffing around these types of companies before, and Microsoft were the best, if the lesser of two evils, if you want to put it that way.
I would disagree only with you in a slight thing, and I know I said I would be mad if like Sony, Nintendo, or the other ones. I would actually not be mad if Google purchased in regards to like my thoughts on corporate consolidation, because if you look at it, it would actually just boost another competitor, which then would actually help the market because there is another big competitor compared to lessening and saying there isn't. It's almost like adding one to it's like neutral. You now kind of boost one up instead of boosting one up that's already up here, like it does increase the market to allow for more competition.
Yeah.
Corey,
I mean, with Microsoft, the revenue boost they're going to get if nothing changed and the trends carried on, they'd still be below Sony even with this acquisition and all of Activision stuff.
But you're looking at just the gaming. Like
yes, yeah.
Microsoft is more than just a gaming company. Like,
I know.
And this is awareness of Microsoft as a whole company, not just the gaming.
But Google are as well, and they've shown very little interest in making hardware, consoles, things like that. Like that's the main thing for me is I don't particularly enjoy the whole streaming way things are going because I think playing it locally on a on-site piece of kit is the best way to play. And as an enthusiast, that's how I want to play the games. So any player that's not willing to do that, or at least provide that as an alternative, I am less interested in hearing what they've got to say. I just don't think Google would have. I could see them doing something like, Stadia's really struggling. We'll put Call of Duty on it and only there, and everyone will flock over. And it's like, well, they won't necessarily. And then you've got that situation to deal with. But
Corey, let me go to you, but let me just add one thing to spice it up. You know, like, I gotta keep it hot, and which is actually hilarious. Our top bar is all Americans, and the below is the UK people.
We're outnumbered now.
Yes, but because you're an American, I do want to bring this up specifically. So. A little history lesson, and then kind of like where everything is at in the political landscape, because this is important in regards to the acquisition. Like, it has to pass the Securities and Exchange Commission, which is we'll get there in a quick second. But anyways, the reason everyone's like, okay, I've heard arguments about, you know, oh my gosh, we're so used to big companies. Like, isn't big companies good for the economy? All that kind of stuff. And actually, the thought in government was big companies was not good until the Reagan administration, when they stopped regulating the companies and said, actually, when bigger companies buy smaller companies, it's good for the economy. And so that's where the mentality has came through since the Reagan administration, which I don't even know when Reagan was. I think that was in the 80s, if I'm
80s,
right.
Yeah.
So like in the 80s, that's when saying big companies buying smaller companies to make even bigger companies is really good. And so that mentality has gone through. But now there is a pushback now in the political landscape. We're saying there is such thing as too big of companies because they control too much in regards to, like, Amazon, an example. They have this marketplace where you can purchase products, but then they also use the data about what is selling, and then they make their own product, and then they put it in front of the people that are trying to sell the same exact product, so they make double the profits. So they're basically using their own insider trading to benefit their own company. And it's saying, well, it's like being the ref and playing the ball game at the same time. It's cheating, right? Like, you can't just make the rules and then also put yourself in the ball game. But anyway, is what the argument is specifically.
Sure. Sure.
So because of that pushback, there is an argument that this might not go through. Like, this could be pushed back as being too big. Do you, as speaking on your thoughts on if this is corporate consolidation, but the other question is, do you think they might have a hard time with Congress, especially with, the last thing was, there's actually one committee that did an investigation over Google, Amazon, and Facebook, and are now coming up with new laws that they might pass before the Securities Exchange Commission gets to see this, about saying companies are too big and they might be worth breaking apart. Do you think that they might run into some pushback about this acquisition going through?
So they might. We've seen this before within the mobile industry, right? AT&T, T-Mobile, all that stuff. Every time we see these large phone companies want to do these large acquisitions, to Matt's point with like Cox Cable or Time Warner or any of these things, every time that comes into play and that someone's going to become a quote unquote monetary superpower, right? There's going to be a lot of pushback, and there's going to be like, well, can we do this? Can we not do this? And it could go under there. It could happen, and someone be like, okay, no, that's not gonna fly. It's video games. Although we're all talking about it, we're all into it. That's awesome. Congress has given less of a shit about video games for the longest freaking time, right? It's not a thing that they really care about. For them, this is like, oh yeah, cool. They bought that World of Warcraft game, so that's neat. For them, yeah, it makes money, but at the same time, like, it's not changing the world. It's not making it's increasing competition, but with who, right? Sony is now still against Xbox. They just have different publishers now. Yeah, man, I don't know. It'll be interesting because we see, Google, Amazon, and Microsoft, they buy companies all the time, whether they're small, big, or whatever. I think what we'll actually get out of this is more new companies, right? We're going to get these new companies because people are going to leave these companies because they've been absolved into these larger companies, and they're going to go off and break off and build their own thing. To Matt's point, like, we haven't seen the rest of this yet. We haven't seen the future of what's going to come next. There could be a huge studio right around the corner that, like, Microsoft takes over all of this, it takes Activision and all this other crap, and they're like, we're just going to keep running with what we have, and some studio's going to come up from the ashes and be like, this is from the makers of all of these great games, and they're building something else. There are large studios that are out there right now that are in the process of, 3-4 years of building these games out. We still have a couple more years until they start pushing stuff out. We're going to see these large publishers increase and add more things to it, but we're going to see smaller companies come out of there. To Tesla's point, right? Starlink. Why is Elon Musk shoving network into the space and creating mesh networks for everybody. I know because I ordered one. I'm waiting for mine to show up. My Starlink's on its way. Because it's my backup internet. That'd be great. But yeah, I think that it's going to increase competition. It's going to increase options for us as a consumer. We're only going to benefit from this because we're going to get breakoffs. We're going to get smaller companies. Steam is full of those things, right? Steam is full of people that are just trying new things out and making money off of it and becoming the next big game. Look at Valheim. Valheim's a perfect example. Valheim was huge last year. I love that game. I'm playing it again. Studio of what, like 12 people, right? And just broke all sorts of records and just is fantastic and came out of nowhere. Came out of absolutely nowhere. So I just think this is going to be, we're going to get these people that are going to leave these companies, these large corporations, and they're going to say, hey, I'm going to make something better. Will Congress try and stop this? Not likely. Again, I go back to the whole stipulation that it is a video game company. So to them,
It is big tech.
It is big tech. It is big tech. But
and it's
we'll
Microsoft. It's not like if maybe Activision and EA, then they maybe be like, oh, two publishers.
Do you think they wouldn't do anything if it was Activision and EA? Do you really think that?
Maybe.
I'd just
maybe.
say,
to your argument, sorry, Liam. Then I'll get to your point. To like you making your point.
Yeah,
like it's two publishers. Like they don't really know much about that, but they know but they know Microsoft. They know they make their tablets. They know they make their computers. They know make their cell phones. They know they make video games. Like it's. I think, and again, and that's why I think if it was maybe like even Sony or even Nintendo, heck, even if Google tried to do it, I think because those are big blockbuster names in tech world, not just video game world. I think
you never have to worry about Google though. Google like gets something and they're like, we made a thing, and like 3 months later they're like, okay, we stopped making that thing. They're like, oh, anybody remember Google Wave? Like, come on, like there was like all these cool Google products. They're like, we don't do that anymore.
Well, and I think the other portion of why I think maybe it's a little more noticeable is some congressmen have already tweeted about this and saying that this is not okay, that they are going to be against this, and some of them are very. Some of them are. I will. Sorry, one quick. I just want to finish it. That one of them is actually head of the finance committee. So like he's going to look into this. Like that is part of their job. So it's because of the House. The Exchange Committee is in the Senate. So like that's the difference. Go ahead, Liam.
Liam, go.
Yeah, I've got to say this. Like if anything happens around this, it'll be because of somebody's stupidity on the issue and ignorance. It won't be because it's the righteous and right thing to do.
Yeah.
Like it's going to be because they're a bunch of old men who
It'll be to make a statement, won't it?
What they're talking about.
That's exactly this is congressmen that want to be relevant, is what this is. They're like, look, video games, get off my lawn.
Well,
Mitch, the exact guy that you pointed to the other day, I think his name's Jerry Nadler.
Yeah.
He said something exactly similar when Microsoft bought Bethesda.
Yeah, they have this.
Well, he has the same mentality. But what I think is what the difference is right now is, they have these bills that are coming in through the Senate right now that they did because they did a bipartisan, which is both parties did an investigation through Google, Facebook, and Amazon. And they had some serious questions. And even on both sides of the aisle right now have questions about these bigger companies and saying, are they too big? Are they not being regulated properly? That they are too much control of the market? And so that's the only reason why I say there is, like, Corey, probably will this go through? Most likely. But I think if there is one chance that this could not go through, this is probably the one that this is their opportunity to maybe make a statement like OTTAPPS have just said, where because they have been focusing a little more on this to say, this is no longer a free reign of the market. Like we are going to say there's such thing as too big.
Mitch, to your point, if anything did happen around this, it would have me laughing because something like you're going to do something about this, but you're not going to do something about Google and Amazon. Like, come on.
Well, the bills that they're bringing to that they're right now debating, some of them will include some drastic changes to either how they tax them to the point where it might be in their best interest just to break up their portions. Or some of them,
kind of agree with it.
or some of it will be actual forced to say there is a cap on how much you can have as a corporation, and that it might force, depending on if they meet the criteria, to make these big companies to break up a little more. So like the ray of sunshine has come in, so that means like the light at the end of the tunnel is coming. Last thoughts about this before we move on to the final thing, which is our hopes and dreams.
In terms of the government regulation stuff, the problem with government is it's always 5 to 10 years behind the technology curve. Right now, the legislation and the regulation that they're writing is Facebook 5 years ago. It's not Facebook today. Like, you know, so
well, they don't even know what to do with Facebook right now. They're like,
I know and a lot of it is theater. A lot of it is to placate, you know, whoever your constituents are.
Yeah. That Dan Boy 90 says, but who's funding their election runs? I'm telling you right now, if you're being funded by big tech, that is not a good look for any congressman right now. Like big pharma, people are okay to look past that one. Sure. If you're regulated, if you're getting money from the gun industry, hey, good for you. Hey, Second Amendment, man. But if you're getting big tech money, that is not good on Democrat or Republican side. So like that is not something I would that I think puts in the factor why they probably actually okay with breaking these guys up, because they don't want their money.
Be sponsored by Viagra. Don't be sponsored by Microsoft Teams.
All right, final thing before we go. What is your let's end on a high note. What is your hopes and dreams about this potential? Like if the acquisition goes through, what is your hopes and dreams that Microsoft can do with something like Activision Blizzard? Either it's a game, like what's the one hope and dream? Who wants to go first?
Well, I started with the Sierra stuff. Just being a guy that's into retro games.
I don't even know what that is. Please explain that to me as a youngin'.
Oh,
Sierra?
Please, what?
Wow.
Corey, I relate to your children more than I relate to you. Their interests are similar to mine.
Oh God!
Wow. So yeah, Sierra was at one point in time the biggest computer game maker. Like they were, you know, the company that you. Anyway, so with this Activision acquisition, Microsoft gets access to all of those IPs. They have shown that they have an interest in sort of digital preservation of games, especially with backwards compatibility. I'm really interested to see what they do with this, if anything comes out of it. So that's sort of my hopes and dreams.
All right. Liam, what's your hopes and dreams?
To be honest, I wouldn't say my hopes and dreams can be contained to just one thing. It's more like a more encompassing thing is that I just really hope this enables Microsoft to look at all of the studios they have and all of the IPs that haven't been in use, and just come up with a bunch of interesting scenarios as to how they can use them. And I just keep hoping more Spyro, Crash Bandicoot, Tony Hawk kind of games that we've sort of been spoiled with a little bit lately keep getting made. I don't want just Tony Hawk remakes and Crash Bandicoot remakes and Spyro remakes. I want some brand new games with some new ideas, and you know, it might not work out, it might, you know, fail, but that's okay. At least they tried.
I bet especially if they do your prediction, Liam, which is go away from the annual Call of Duty, then they could have those studios work on those games.
That is part of the reason, and you know, those studios have been sabotaged by Call of Duty's very sort of brutal release schedule. You know, let's say
hungry beast. That Call of Duty.
I know
everyone wants the Warzone, more Warzone.
Yeah, I know for a fact, Mitch, that Raven Software, the people there, still want to make other games, and I know for a fact that Sledgehammer is trying very hard to make a game that isn't Call of Duty.
I bet you it'll feature a Sledgehammer. OTTAPPS.
Yeah, maybe. You know, they named that studio for a reason.
Not because of the song.
Yeah.
Sledgehammer. Okay, go. OTTAPPS.
I hope indirectly this gives Sony a kick up the arse to stop the penny pinching on upgrades and just the stupid shit they've been doing because they've been market leader. Like, gives them a bit of a gut check to be like, okay, let's be a bit more consumer friendly. We're not going to give our games away on Spartacus, but we'll meet you halfway and won't charge you for a £10 graphical update. That would be nice. And then for Activision, you know, I hope that Microsoft can rehab what's going on over there. Stop the yearly churn of Call of Duty. Invest in the teams. Invest in the people there who've, some of them had some torrid working conditions and culture over the past few years. Make their workplace better and let them have a bit more creative freedom. You know, we've heard that Microsoft have been very hands-off with Bethesda and other acquisitions. It's kind of like, what are you up to? They're like, we're doing this. They're like, okay, let us know if you need anything. Undo all the crap that's going on. Undo the stickiness of Call of Duty infecting every single team there, and let these guys be creative and do what they do best, which is make games. Because the output, all the good stuff that's come in the last few years, from my perspective, that I've enjoyed, like Crash Bandicoot and Tony Hawk's, both of those studios are supporting Call of Duty now. So I want that all undone so these guys can do what they do best.
One of them doesn't even exist anymore. It got folded into Blizzard.
Yeah, Vicarious Visions. I mean, that's what I'm talking about. That will hopefully not happen anymore, and they can rebirth some of these teams.
Corey.
I just want to be able to play Blizzard games again without being judged. That's all. I hope that there's things, man, I got a lot of hopes. I have high hopes. I would like Diablo 4 to come out on Game Pass. I think that would be awesome.
I'd like it to come out.
Yeah, I would like, oh god, anytime. Yeah, anytime. Those are soon. No, yeah, I would love for them to be like, hey, Diablo 4 now on Game Pass. Corey, you already have Game Pass. Now you can just play Diablo. I don't have to pay for it. I don't do anything. I hope that they undo everything that we've had to deal with in the past 6-9 months, and those poor people had to deal with at Blizzard. And I'm hoping that they make it more of a positive look again, like it once was. And it saves WoW, right? Like, I hope that they actually go, this is the first time that Microsoft actually has a legit MMORPG under its belt, right? So, like, what are you going to do with that? I'm excited to see what they're going to start implementing going forward. Call of Duty, sure, get it off of the annual reigns. Spend the time to make it a better game because you have the money and the time to do it. Make it a better studio because you have the money and time to do it. And from what we've seen with Microsoft, that's what they do. And they're not in a rush. And back to the point of, it's the long game, right? So do that and you'll have a much better experience. You're going to have a much better audience. And the 25 million people that play Blizzard games today are going to stick around because they want to see it be better. And I'm hoping that that's all that comes out of it. It's just positivity coming out of the whole thing.
Commander Fed agrees with you. Said that's the dream. Let me play StarCraft without feeling guilty.
Yeah, that's all I want. I want to be able to play World of Warcraft without everybody giving me a hard time. Like, can I just go back doing my dailies? That's all I want to do. It's fine. But yeah, that's the dream.
There's a good chance you won't have to pay for a separate subscription going forward either.
That's
roll
what I'm curious
roll
about
it into
that.
Game Pass.
That'd be interesting.
Corey,
WoW built into Game Pass subscription. That'd be interesting.
If someone told me and said, "Hey, we increased your Game Pass, but you also have access to all the MMORPGs, and that's rolled in," I'll pay the premium. I'll pay the higher cost. Whatever, just roll it all into one cost. Doesn't bother me at all.
Which also, Commander Fed has said, Mitch turned on the God rays, and I call this God mode. This is God mode.
Is that what that is?
This is God
that
mode.
What it is?
This is God mode.
Wasn't that before your time?
No.
Okay, just checking.
No.
Okay,
No.
grim.
I'm pretty much in agreement with you guys. The one thing I would really love to see, I know, and I just, it's one of those things where it's kind of, if you never got onto the bandwagon, you never really were able to experience it. And I know how much people love Blizzard. And it's just I never really got to be able to hop on that bandwagon before. So, like, I never got to really experience WoW, World of Warcraft. I really didn't get to experience Diablo. I never really got to experience... I did Overwatch, but, I would love to see one of the Microsoft studios take one of the Blizzard games and maybe make it like an action RPG and, like, use... Because I've heard so much great things about the storytelling. Like, I would love to see, like, a game built in the World of Warcraft world and then using, like, game mechanics that is a little more accessible to me as a gamer that plays a certain type of game, and then maybe it will interest me to go hop on World of Warcraft because I'm like, oh my god, this world's amazing. Azeroth, oh my god, all the Funyuns. I don't know if there's Funyuns in it,
The
but
Funyuns. Wow. StarCraft Ghost is one that we all wanted to play for the longest time.
Yeah, the StarCraft
I heard somebody saying that was it two things that they wanted King's Quest to go to Double Fine and for Double Fine to make a King's Quest game, and I also heard people saying make StarCraft Ghost and give it to the Coalition. I was like, okay.
Well, I could easily see
those seem like matches made in heaven.
Give the Call of Duty team Halo. Take it away from 343. Give it to
No, that's fuck no.
Yes.
No, thank you.
Yes,
No,
at least they can make a single player campaign.
Mitch, we just got away from the last two games, which Halo was trying to be a Call of Duty game, and they finally realised, we should stop being a Call of Duty game, we should be Halo again, and now you're going to give it to Call of Duty developers. Unacceptable.
So we're talking about giving all the games of Blizzard to Microsoft and their studios. What about vice versa, right? What happens if we got... So remember back in the day...
Banjo-Kazooie from Blizzard.
Well, hold on.
They make good characters. We live in
a world where Crash Bandicoot and Banjo-Kazooie are owned by the same company, which is
they could have a
weird to me.
crossover event.
They could do that. But
Banjo and Kazooie and Crash and Spyro do sports together. The Olympics. It's their competition to Sonic
Racing,
and Mario. The
racing.
Olympics.
Platformer racing or whatever.
There was realised that needed competition.
Yeah, right. Project Titan, which was canceled back in 2007 by Ensemble Studios, which was supposed to be the Halo MMO.
Yeah.
And for the record, Commander Fett, yes, the problem is the story of Halo, which I think if you look at it overall, I think any of the Activision Studios would do the story. Now, it wouldn't be amazing, but at least it would be better than the crap we've been getting. And so I'd rather take that.
It could be worse.
I don't want to... 343 has not proven they can tell a good story, unfortunately.
Oh, and to Matt's point with Sierra games coming back, I would love for that to come back just so I could get a proper Tribes game. I would play Tribes so hard again. I just love that.
So basically,
I thought Daybreak.
Sierra, Tribes 1 was. Dude, does Daybreak own Tribes? The actual.
I thought they did, but maybe not. Yeah, I'm not sure where that went.
So basically, Microsoft, and then I guess the final thing, and I know we can't really talk about it much, but something we all didn't even discuss or even think about is Microsoft now owns basically, like the gaming, esports entertainment industry.
Oh yeah,
because they have so many studios and developers that make esports games.
Yep.
So
Major League Gaming.
They own that market, which again they cornered. They in a sense they would corner that market, and they would have they could basically make the Olympics for esports because they own enough of them, and then they would just invite the other ones to come in. So they're also an entertainment company now too because they got to figure that shit out, which is difficult already as is. I think the last thing I could say before we end it is Microsoft has made a huge pivot. Now they are a first-person shooter company, and they also are a huge MMORPG company.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Whereas
mobile company,
which Sony is mainly a third-person action-adventure action RPG company. So, or just a RPG company.
Just in general.
Thanks, guys. This was fun. I think this is probably our best episode we've done. Sorry, Keith. I'm sorry you weren't here to enjoy it. But unfortunately, I mean, if you were here, it still would have been the best episode ever, Keith. I promise you.
Just twist the knife
a little bit.
He was here in spirit.
We are Pixel Pints. If you want to find us, we are at Twitter at @pixel_pints or on Instagram at Pixel Pints Pod. We stream every single weekend here on twitch.tv/Pixel Pints. We archive those episodes there, but we do archive on YouTube as well. So if you go to YouTube, look up Pixel Pints, look for a green mug or any of your podcasting services, we are on there as well. So check them out. I have two. Well, I mean, I was joined here by Berghoff and Liam, but we do have two great guests from a Starting Point podcast, not affiliated with the Chris Evans podcast, but the very first. So he gets to hold that up in his face. Maybe you could ask for a Captain America shield.
I would take that as an icon. Sure.
Yeah. Just 100%. Maybe do that. And then so you can check them out on Twitter, right? Where can they
Twitter,
find you?
You can find us on Twitter. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on all your social medias. You guys can find us on all of your streaming platforms for anything audio. We're on Spotify. We're on Apple iTunes. We're having some issues with Google. We're fixing that right now. But yeah, we're everywhere.
Awesome. And then we have OTTAPPS from DIMP Digital, who does idle game chat every single week on a Monday?
On a Monday, it's there. Ready and waiting. It's probably actually Sunday night for you guys, but in the one true time zone, it comes out Monday. So.
Get your morning coffee in the United States and put on some idle game chat right before you head to work. Or what I do, I download all my podcasts on YouTube and then I listen to them in my car. Great secret method if you want to like do stuff on YouTube. So that hurts, Mitch. Sorry, Dan Boy Nandy said that hurts, Mitch. I'm assuming about the knife twisting. I'm so sorry. Anyway, Thank you so much for joining us. I'm so happy to see you guys. We don't get to have you guys on very often, so it's great to have you guys. So on that note, gentlemen, we will see you next time.
Cheers.
So talking about 4D chess, Shuhei Yoshida tweeted a pic of God of War on the Steam Deck.
Oh yeah, I did see that.
Where does Valve fit into all of this?
That's my
private.
Yeah,
as a private company. Yeah, and Epic. Like, does Microsoft go talk to Gabe and be like, you know what? You were with us once before, and you can rejoin us.
You know, I almost messaged him saying, in a sense, that is that the PSP?